It is going towards the end of the month, not quite there. Next Friday is Christmas Day. And, during this time of COVID and living in 2020, going to 2021, where are we as a people? You almost need to ask yourself that. As a community, how are we functioning and what are we doing to ensure that we are all accessing the ability to engage in the process? I mean, for the most part, I can say that, there's not a lot of, just not a lot of people participating at any time in public engagement for the outcomes and the maintenance of. And the few people that do, well, they're the people that wind up getting elected in office. And I heard a very disturbing recording tonight in regards to, you know, how some people actually think, and they really do think that way. I mean, really, they think that they're providing support and that Black people are asking for too much, you know, reparations and acknowledgement. And then I heard another disturbing conversation about a parent who was having a discussion with their child, and their child was just off the hook. But I can understand. I've been there, and the reality is that when you are growing up, you don't have boundaries. If you don't have rules and you don't have family, um, good family communication, it's easy to get out of hand. I mean, the conversation, I mean, people just go right into attacking, you know. All of a sudden you can't be their friend. All of a sudden even family members don't have good communication skills. Communication is the one thing that people will have to learn how to effectively get their points across without, tearing somebody apart. It's so important. I mean, relationships are kind of tough to manage, but you're not trying to manage the relationship. Relationships should be kind of like natural. People should have the ability to be themselves and express themselves. But then we live in a nation where people mimic stuff on television, and that's just really not real. And television is television. It's telling you a vision that isn't really reality. And so many people don't have a good grip on reality. And we all saw that when the 75 million people voted for Donald Trump. And Donald thought, hey, he couldn't lose this election because he actually did have a lot of followers. But I mean, he had like 70 million and Biden had like 75 million. So, I mean, really, he won with more people. He had more people this election than he did last election, but he still didn't have enough because America is just a melting pot. And public education is going to be vital that more people who are looking for outcomes and the maintenance of become more engaged. Because far too many people don't even understand public education. I mean, they're there, surely, but they're not knowledgeable. And they're not measuring that the maintenance of effort. They're not understanding that, the outcomes for the community are important. And when you're not measuring the maintenance of effort and you're not having those outcomes, and Black people have such low self-esteem and they don't work together as a community, it's not something that's happened. I mean, they're terrified, I guess, of causing waves, like stirring crap. Kind of like understanding that there has to be a level of benefit to public services. And all children should have the same opportunity to benefit. At least that's what you thought. But if you don't understand what a free and appropriate public education is, then you don't understand that there is no freedom in America without the ability to understand where you're coming from or what your responsibility or your role is as a citizen. Because as you're born on this soil, for sure, I can guarantee you have a responsibility to ensure that the maintenance of effort and the support for your people is happening. Failure just can't be an option. Failure can't be the only option when it comes to public ed. And even if it's, we're talking about mass failure. And then we're talking about the, what do you call it? The destruction of the planet. And we're talking about, should we risk putting, creating drilling for oil? Well, we all know what happened in that incident that happened down in the Gulf Coast, because it really started animals dying off, and it started, this water had to travel. Water doesn't stay stagnant. You kind of understand what I'm saying? Water is fluent, and it traveled. All that poison that they put in the ocean to try to sop up the oil, instead of finding ways to naturally absorb the oil so it didn't affect the coastline. Oh no. It's not like they put up a bunch of sponges, to collect that oil. No, nope. They put chemicals in the water, and the chemicals were toxic to the ocean floor. And the chemicals just kind of like drifted down, trying to make that oil stay down on the bottom. You kind of understand what I'm saying? But that oil is not going to disappear. It's not going to dissipate. And the chemicals, and, just killing off the coral reefs. And that on the coastline of Florida, that was already, I mean, I don't have to be an expert to understand that we can affect the planet. And, we just keep driving because transportation is what we have. But not all people have the same level of cars and transportation. And not all people have been as callous as Americans, because there's far too many undereducated Americans. And for whatever reason, that they don't believe that underfunding programs and services to educate children is not making a difference. No, it's impacting our society. And what is underfunding in the first place? The reality is, not enough people, not enough good people with good minds and good hearts are participating in the oversight process of the public service sector. And as we're talking about public services, understand that we are paying for all these public services. Truly. The only people that pay is the American people, because nobody else is paying. So this time during COVID, and this is the universe. The universe shut America down because America had turned its back on the people, the human beings that inhabit the planet. And there's just no real promise of of whatever. There's really just, it's kind of crazy. We're living in crazy times and crazy days. And there are people that just think with their other parts of anatomy, and they really just don't understand that good parenting doesn't come from people who don't understand what parenting is all about. Good parenting comes from sacrifice and being willing to learn how to effectively raise your children and support your children. Because all children have to learn. And we learn by what we see. And if there's people that can't read in your family, or undereducated people who make choices that might affect you, might not be around. Because we definitely do have a system of a prison system. And really, I think we are operating under a prison nation. I can tell you that not one time did my children ever go to Saturday school. And I don't care, because that's not something I was gearing my children up to participate in. So no, Saturday school is not what we do. And as far as you establishing rules that children have to participate in Saturday schools or whatever that was, it's some kind of calisthenics and bullshit is what it really was. And so no, I didn't participate in Saturday school, and I cannot say I'm a conformist. No, I don't. I'm not a person that's easy to conform. But what I am is a person that likes to research and read. And when I moved to Las Vegas, I really don't understand how they have a Clark County school district has a multi-tiered system of behavior incidents and a decision flow chart. And I was looking at this chart and trying to understand, Well, where was the lesson that the children were supposed to learn that somehow they didn't meet the progress or there was no maintenance of effort? So, and then when I understand that I'm looking at a school district that does not have the data for the children who would progress from grade level to grade level, they just don't even keep that data. It's not relevant to them. And then when you go to the district's website and you look at the schools, you cannot compare the schools that are being funded with the Title I money, but there are programs that are truly trackable. Like they had Victory and Zoom schools. And some of those Victory and Zoom schools, I can tell you, we're still in program improvement, trying to improve. I mean, but if you just don't understand public education, so many people don't. So many people think that it's irrelevant or not relevant to them. But they don't understand is that we all pay for this system of services. And as we're paying for the salaries of the people who are ensuring that there are places for families and women with children and people who need protection. I mean, there are just services that we all pay for, just like everybody pays for healthcare. And how strange and ironic is it that the minute you get sick and can't work, then you don't have healthcare. But as long as you're working, you're paying for healthcare. And that's the prevention mode. So, you have to ask yourself, well, what has gone on in America that has ended us up in this dilemma that we're in? Because I truly feel it's a dilemma because far too many kids are not graduating high school. And if they are graduating, they're being promoted without making any progress. What does that look like? It looks like social promotion. Uh, what do you call it? Credit deficient. And oh, some they have here in Nevada, they have 5 different types of diplomas. 5 different types. They have an adult diploma for children who are at risk to fail. What did I say? And then they have this other diploma called an advanced diploma. But it's, the requirements are above what is required for the regular diploma. And then they have the standard diploma. And then they have an alternative diploma. And so they have this adult diploma that, you really don't have to make progress. And then they have this alternative diploma with people with disabilities. But who says that children with disabilities can't learn? Apparently, that's the way they believe in Nevada. Apparently, I know if I had been in Nevada, perhaps my children would not have been educated, or perhaps they would have found me in somewhere. Because guess what? It's just not something that I'm willing to do. Is not have the conversation to help empower others so that they understand that they can empower themselves. The reality is that as an individual, when you have children, you have a right to have your children assessed. And if you cannot afford it, which most likely you don't have to be able to afford it because it will be afforded to you by the and paid for through the state, if not the local district. But the local district has a responsibility to provide the pathway that you need to support yourself and sustain yourself and become, you know, a citizen, a functional citizen that pays taxes, those kind, because if you work, you're going to pay taxes. And if you're not paying them, your employer's paying them, but somebody's paying those taxes. So how do you look at America? How do you actually see America? And how do you see yourself? I just don't know, as I cannot explain it. And the reality is that far too many of us don't even attempt to try to explain what's happening. And then we're all here. We're living in the towns and cities, wherever we think that we can make a better opportunity and support our families best. Or we wind up in places because of circumstances or because we went there before and it was, the quality, the lifestyle. But irregardless, no matter where you're living in your box, you have to have the ability to access the resources that are sustaining the local cities. But if you're living in a city that's been basically discriminating against you and causing you harm and not trying to provide opportunities for employment or engagement, the reality is that far too many people are enrolled in public schools who are not benefiting. And what do I mean by not benefiting? I mean just that. I mean, how do you create a system where you have an incident flow chart and that everybody's required to document people, but these kind of things follow people to the criminal justice system? And that's what I'm talking about. How is it that we have a system of education that it has winded up just documenting what children can't do? Somebody needs to help me with that because, I mean, that's not what the intent of public education is for. Honestly, if your child is getting a letter grade of F or below a C, then you need to do some investigation to understand why that child is not making it in the classroom. It's not that the kid is not trying. No, but after a while, kids lose interest and letter grades of F just don't make a difference anymore. Reality is that we all have to be able to read enough to make good decisions so that we can support and sustain ourselves. And the education system was created by man. So it's not something that's impossible to learn, quite frankly. But once you learn how to read, you don't need anybody standing over your shoulder waiting for you to respond. You need to read and you need to be able to create things and engage in the process of sharing your opinion. And, we need to be able to measure, really measure the support that's being provided to all people so you can figure out if it's working or not. And why are we paying people if it's not working? Because truly, that's what we're doing. We're paying people for services that are not working for everyone. And in the end, we continue to pay for people who are not benefiting the system. So, the most I can do is to come on, share what I feel that's relevant. And it's just my feelings, truly. And difficult to have conversations with people because really, they're not coming from where you're coming from. So few people are on my level, but you know what? That's because they didn't participate like me. They didn't do the things that I've done. They can't see the relevance in the conversation. And really, why am I continuing to talk about public education? It's because our children are the harvest. And until you realize that, we can't bring about the change that we need to bring about. And that's just so true. So I'm going to sign off now. I've been on only less than 20 minutes. But it's getting late. It's like the third show that I've done, and it doesn't make a difference if people are not sharing, liking, and subscribing, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to bring about change is if you as an individual are willing to pick up the torch also to ensure that all children who live in your neighborhood have access to public education. And we don't need our kids to be continued to be murdered in the middle of the streets or our families to be devastated by compliance issues when compliance came from slavery. And slavery is just ugly history that's in America. So until we meet again, like maybe in the morning, and I feel like talking again, I'm going to say look into what's happening in your local communities. Understand that if the children in your local community or in your neighborhood are not benefiting from public education, then they're going to be the burden that we all have to pay for. So until we meet again, I'll say like, subscribe, follow me on Anchor, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and follow me on where else? Twitter and Twitch. And there's just so many, I don't know, TikTok. I even put something on TikTok. So I don't know, until we start reaching out and making sure that everybody is starting to pay attention, we can't change. So like I said, Biden said we have to build back better. I'm about building back better. Until we meet again, this is Darlene Anderson signing off. The Parent Empowerment. Less than a half an hour though. Take care. And so I'm going to sign off here too, because it'll be easier to upload to my YouTube channel and say that it's so important that as we continue in this journey, and I'm still living 62 and still have, miles to go as far as I'm concerned with conversations to help you help yourself. It's amazing how you can raise your children and they'll be so different, but still within your tight circle. But then they had a circle of friends, and those friends had a circle of friends. And those, as you continue to grow, you kind of like grow with your friends. But then there's some people out there that just move from town to town and don't even stay with their families. And that's what America's about: separation, divide and conquer. Everybody has to pay rent, everybody has to pay those same bills, everybody has to have their same space. But it's different in Europe, it's different in Italy because everything was about family. And America's really not about family. It's really not about family, as they have destroyed so many families. So until we meet again, I'm going to say like, subscribe, and share. And this is Zoom, and I should be able to share and try to get people in the room, but I've sent it out a couple times and really had no interest. But if you have any questions, please inbox me, ask me the questions, because truly, knowledge has to be based on what you've lived through or what you've gone through or what you're willing to, engage in the process of understanding that we all have personal responsibility to participate as citizens, as this is America. And this is what a democracy is all about. So until we meet again, I say like, subscribe, share, and follow me. Good night.